Hello, Ben here from 10% Better. I thought I'd take an opportunity to have a brief conversation with a client of mine to share a few experiences on the kind of journey working together. So I'd like to introduce Jody. Jody, say hello, share a little bit about you,
Hello.
a little bit about your company.
Hello, yeah, my name is Jody Rainsford. I have an agency called Hello Genius. We write stories for businesses to help them, explain what their products and their services can do, unlocking profits through the use of our content. And I've obviously been working with you, Ben, for the last 9 months or so in order to grow my business.
Great. Yeah. I mean, actually, one of the things that reminds me, as you were sort of describing there, I really like the idea that you help companies write their way to new customers. But maybe that's a conversation for
like
another
a
day.
version of writing myself a swimming pool, as Paul McCartney once
Right.
said.
Okay. Good. You can maybe do that afterwards. Brilliant. So I guess maybe a kind of useful starting place is to go back a step. What were some of the challenges that you were kind of wrestling with before we were working together?
Okay, so before we were working together, I was doing okay as an agency, bringing on a good amount of business. We've been around for 5 years, so sort of built up that level of reputation where getting a lot of sort of referrals come back, a lot of recommendations. But what I was really struggling to do was to kind of grow past that limit. Grown the business, got a few staff on, then it's kind of receded a little bit. It's kind of been a bit up and down, but it's never really gone past the point at which I wanted to grow it. I thought I had my pricing down, and I just knew that I needed something to push past that. And it gets to the point where you realize maybe it's not what I'm doing, maybe it's me, and with a little bit of self-awareness. And so I felt like I needed some help in order to help me grow a business. But also the other thing that I found is when I started growing a business is that it started to impact me, a lot more stress, a lot more anxiety that came with it. And so I really needed guidance on how to grow a business that kind of worked around me, that fit in with the kind of place that I wanted it to be, that I was going to spend my time in as well. And that's what I was really struggling with.
Great. That's really, really good to hear. So what were some of the options that you were looking at before we started to work together?
Oh, so I'm not afraid to invest in my own self-development. So I kind of veer between different approaches. So there's lots of stuff out there for people trying to help people with agencies and stuff. A lot of it's very, very generic. When you dive into it, actually, it's not particularly useful. For what if you have a particular vision of your business and it doesn't fit in with that, it kind of doesn't work. It's always telling you, you've got to do this approach, you've got to do that approach. So I've tried various programs, didn't work. I invested in working with a coach for a few months as well, who I thought was going to be able to kind of give me that kind of sales impetus and help me grow the business. And I don't know, we just weren't quite aligned really in what I was trying to do. He wasn't that interested in my vision, and we didn't have a great amount of rapport, and which I thought we had approaching that relationship, but they were really focused on sales, and actually without any real thought about how do I actually grow the kind of business that I would be happy to be part of, and what does this business look like in 3 years, rather than just kind of pile sales in and let's see what happens. So those things didn't work for me, which is why I ended up coming to you.
Great, that's really good to hear. So given that you have invested in other things and you spent time, like you say, kind of with coaches or that type of thing, what concerns or doubts did you have coming into the relationship with me?
I was concerned. The big concerns I think with always is that somehow I'm not going to be able. It's my fault that those other things haven't worked, and so that's the common denominator in this relationship. So maybe something that I'm doing is wrong, and I won't be able to do it. I was concerned. Yeah, so I was concerned it wasn't work, and I was just concerned that. I didn't think this was going to happen, but this was always a concern at the back of my mind that somehow I was going to be told that I need to start being someone I'm not, or doing something that doesn't necessarily come naturally, rather than sort of staying in my zone of expertise. That I'd have to do that. There's nothing really about the conversations we had that made me think that was a genuine thing, but those were kind of the things that were a bit of a hangover from previously working with people.
Yeah. So I know a coach we both know, Dan Sullivan, strategic coach. They talk about zone of genius, don't they? Which obviously describes that state very well. And so, how in kind of working together have you kind of overcome those doubts and concerns? How's that sort of translated into the practice of doing?
So there was, right at the start of the relationship, we had lots of conversations, because I thought we'd be talking about growth and all that kind of thing, but we started talking a little bit around what it is that I actually want. Why am I doing these things? What is it that that energizes me? What it makes sense? And then I think you gave me some real clarity at that stage as to what I should be focusing on. And that's the kind of clarity that it's like I really needed someone to take a step back and go, look, I've had a look at these things. You've shown me this, and it seems like that. So it wasn't just one of those, this has that tendency that some coaches just like hands off, let you come to all the decisions. And there was an element of guidance from you, which is exactly what I needed and exactly what I wanted. It's like, just sort of going, look, if you're going to do it this way, think about this, or if you do it that way, think about that. And that was incredibly useful. And the thing that I'd been really looking for in previous relationships that I hadn't got. But then, making me much more aware of my own value in terms of pricing. I thought our pricing was sorted. I was completely off. And as a result of that, actually understanding about how to have better conversations with people and think of the sales process as conversations about helping them buy, and transforming all of those conversations around it have been much clearer about sort of pricing ranges and about putting a proposal together that actually meets their needs, rather than sort of creating a proposal that you send to them and hope for the best. So just a whole swathe of things that just provide much more clarity. And as a result, all of that has helped me be much clearer on what I need to do in order to hit the growth goals that I have. But fundamentally, I feel much more comfortable within the business, because I know that now I have that profitability in the services that we provide, that actually I'm not going to be dragged back into it, and I have the ability to hire the right people to carry on that growth.
Okay, I'm just going to pause because your reception went a little bit through that response.
Oh no!
So what I'll do is, I think, so because a lot of that sort of in there about the kind of how you've kind of worked through that to overcome also starts to kind of point to what's changed. So changing how you're selling, changing how you're pricing, to kind of give you the sort of headroom to be able to make those changes. So if I just ask those two questions together, and then you can sort of touch back on some of those things again.
Yeah.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. That's great. So I guess a couple of things I'm curious about is, on the one hand, how you kind of, how the work we did helped you kind of work through those concerns that you'd have. And also, I guess more broadly, what's changed as a consequence of our time working together?
Okay, so the first thing we had a lot of conversations right at the start around what my vision was about the business plan that I put together, and you took a real interest in it in the way that I hoped others would take an interest in that, and to really understand what I was getting at. And so really understanding that and actually giving me some kind of guidance, rather than making me step back and go, well, you decide what you want, you decide, it's all up to you. Actually giving some guidance to that was completely what I was looking for, without really realizing it, and that's what no one had given me before. And so that provided a level of clarity that I hadn't had before, which made everything else. In terms of what has changed, my pricing has been transformed in terms of what I'm offering. Actually thinking about providing complete solutions, actually having proper conversations with people that help them buy, rather than selling to them, finding out what it is fundamentally that they're looking for, what it is that that they want to get done, and providing them with a solution to do that, rather than having a nice chit chatty sales conversation, which I always tend to have, and then firing over a proposal that I have absolutely no idea how it will land when it gets there, whether it's off base, whether it actually meets their needs. So much more clarity around that, having much tighter ability to have those sales conversations, and for it to feel a lot more organic and a lot more comfortable. And I didn't like doing sales calls, but now the way that you've reframed it for me is just about helping them get where they want to go, and that really has changed everything in terms of pretty much the way that I think about all the kind of the sales process and all the selling in the business now. And as a result of that, just adding much more profitability back into the business, much more profitability, so I can actually start pulling people in to do a lot of those things, rebuilding the team, and then hitting those growth goals that I've always been trying to sort of push onto.
Yeah, it's great. So in some respects, it's partly about removing the guesswork from selling, and also helping you kind of reframe perceptions of value, what your work is worth. Would they be kind of things which you feel have changed?
Absolutely, and it was working about what outcome does the prospect want, does the lead want, and actually being really clear on the fact that you can help them and you can fulfill it in the way that they want it to be fulfilled, and then putting a value on that, and putting a value on that makes them feel confident that you can do that. And that's the kind of a whole sort of level that I was missing completely. I was very much very kind of transactional, very this is how much things cost, regardless of the impact that will have them, regardless of what they needed. And so it's transformed just to how I approach the whole the buying process from the perspective of the prospect.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Jody. Really appreciate that. Very useful to get that feedback and those thoughts, and look forward to continuing working together.
Cheers.
Bye.